And my friend and I, we would always sit close to each other and stuff. And then we had a routine. We'd go back and stay the night at his house. And they had a really big house and they had a game room. And that was where a lot of the intimacy took place, in the sense of emotional intimacy. And I think the first time I came over to play video games, my friend and the other guy who asked me if I'd ever kissed a guy came over too, and we played like Castlevania or something. And before the other guy got there, I think we played Nintendo 64 back then and PlayStation. And before the kid came over, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show came on television. And of course, it was the scene with when Rocky is the shroud's taken off and he's in his gold underwear and he's running around with Frankenfurter running after him. And this was on TV, and we were like, oh my God. And so I had never seen, well, there's nothing like Rocky Horror, but I had never seen anything queer themed in my whole life. And my friend was like, oh my God, this is like the sissy, like gay shit. And like, it's been on all the time lately because it was on, like, I think the local like the local free station, which Bellingham used to have. And I was like really like weirded out and awkward by us sitting there watching this guy, muscle guy, run around, and a guy who was in drag. And but he was like really into it. Like the lady doth protest too much, and like was watching it for a few minutes, and I think he kind of looked over at me a couple times, like trying to see what my reaction was. But I was an Iron Maiden. I wasn't giving away anything. So there was that moment, and I just started feeling more and more strongly about him, like physical attraction, emotional, and love. And fell in love with them over a period of time. And I think he fell in love with me too. That relationship, that friendship was never consummated, and it was hell for me, and I think probably for him too. So we were both closeted, and we never, it wasn't a relationship which enabled us to come out. It just was kind of there. And we had, in spite of that, in spite of like incredible sexual tension and awkwardness and a lot of pink elephants all over the place, like we were really close friends and we really cared about each other. And we would get close to kissing or cuddling or something like that. And we were both scared. And that probably would have been my first experience with a guy if I hadn't been kidnapped by Pentecostal fundamentalism at about the same time. So I love this guy and still love him. And was really confused, but basically at this point knew I was gay, 15 or 16, but I thought it was evil and wrong and immoral and something that would lead to eternal damnation in this place of fire and all that. And his family was not like that. My family wasn't even really like that. But I, a family that rented my grandparents' rental house, which is on the front of our farm, that's where I was made by one of my grandma's renters in 1985. But they moved in, huge family, crazy nut job, religious, like religious mania. And it's sad to say that they saw in me and my sister almost, it was very predatory, actually. It was like they saw converts for their extremist church in excuse me, in BC. And my sister and I were very vulnerable. And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because they obviously cared about us, but they indoctrinated us into this totally fucking batshit thing. And some of you heard of all the dispensations, and it was like, so they asked my grandma if I wanted to come over for Bible study, and I did. And I quickly fell into this rabbit hole of good and evil dualisms and binary thinking and just a lot of insanity and toxic religious culture. So at that same time, I was in love with my friend and I was having these feelings, and I knew I was attracted to guys. And it was a real crisis. It was a real crisis that lasted about 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, with struggling to come out, but struggling with something that I thought I could control, but I also wanted to be, but also thought was evil, and lived in a society that some people thought it was okay, some people thought it was evil, you know. Some people thought it was wrong, some people thought it was criminal. Just all these different opinions. And I really wanted to be with my friend, and I really wanted to, be with him. And we both ended up in therapy. At one point, we both ended up with the same psychiatrist. And I remember one time his aunt was down and she was talking about gay people and kind of looking at us and um, saying like how how gay people, everything is fine, and they're fine, good people. And that time his mom, my friend's mom, was like, yeah, yeah. Turned out later I don't think she was. I think she was homophobic, but or at least she really wanted grandkids and that kind of thing phobic, which takes a woman generally. So heteronormative kind of thing for her sons. And where's I going? Another time this lady came to dinner and she was this was the kind of dinner where you had cloth napkins and you had a bread course and a salad course and you had wine glasses and you'd have a little bit of wine maybe or sparkling cider or whatever. And meanwhile at home, like my my place with my mom, like we were having Papa Murphy's pizza if we even had it, Kraft mac and cheese and all that shit, top ramen. This lady came who was a palm reader. So she read my palm and she read my friend's palm. And I just remember when she, kind of cute moment, when she was reading my friend's palm, she was like, "Oh, there's a line of Venus on this your finger. I think the the middle finger." And I was all excited. I didn't even know what that was, but I just pictured the Venus like statues, and I was like, "What does that mean?" Because I was hoping that would like finally solve the problem of us loving each other and both being closeted and no one wanting to say anything about what was there. So I thought, like maybe the line of Venus would prove that he was really gay. Not a lot has changed.